Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, all praises, honor, and glory be unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Akakudash. Double honors to our apostles and elders at Great Millstone who taught us his truth and who rule well. Peace, love, salutation, and mercy be unto the hopeful elect. Back again with another one through the Holy Spirit. The elite will attempt to microchip the world. Not just America, not just China or Russia, but they're going to make it to where there's a mandatory microchip process that goes on throughout the four corners of the world. And you have countries like Sweden who are going completely cashless, which the amount of dollars that they use, or whatever they call their money over there, is at a small percent, and cash is almost obsolete. And you have different payment methods in which they use, Androids or smartphones to pay for items, through apps. You have, credit cards, but you have a large number of individuals who are microchipping themselves and using that as a form of payment. So it's becoming more and more obvious of what the mark of the beast is. All right, this thing is no longer, what do you call that? This thing is no longer inconspicuous, which means not clearly visible or attracting attention, not conspicuous. But the RFID chip, the mark of the beast, is becoming more and more conspicuous to the masses of people as we approach towards this new world order that the elites are going to establish. And especially through this COVID-19 thing, all right, a lot of people are beginning to wake up to Esau and to realize that he is a devil, that he is the devil, he is the wicked. And the wicked, which is the rich elite banking families, all right, who have become rich, all right, through their banking systems that they have set up all around the world. All right, they have a global agenda. They're not satisfied with the position of power, all right, that they have at this current moment. For an example, they set up things like the Brentwood Agreement. All right, they set up things like attaching the dollar to the petrodollar, to where countries around the world, couldn't use any other currency or any other thing to trade to purchase oil, that they had to use the American dollar, which gave them total control over these nations. All right, because not only does these nations, all right, use the dollar to trade for oil, but they use the dollar to trade in general. Seeing that it was a good idea to peg their economy to the dollar, so that if anything happened, all right, and there was a fluctuation within the currency, in regards to the dollar, that wouldn't cause a hyperinflation within their economy. So their currency being pegged to the dollar, whether the dollar go up, their economy goes up. Whether the dollar goes down, the same thing. So these nations are pretty much caught within the bind. They're caught within the gem. And that gives the elites control over these nations. And a lot of nations, know and understand that there's a bunch of bullshit that is going on. And a lot of them won't speak out because they're afraid of not being able to trade. All right. In which, if this place, which the elites are ruling through, all right, if they want, they can stop you from being able to trade. They can stop you from being able to buy. They can stop you from being from others from trading with you by way of putting sanctions. But ultimately, the elites want even more power than that. And they're going to get it through forcing everybody within the world to be on this one world system, which is the RFID chip system, which is the mark of the beast system. So now, being on this system, they have total control. They have ultimate control. They have a permanent control until the Lord causes this place to be taken down. Now, going into Revelations, the 13th chapter, I'm going to read some commentary. I'm going to read verse 16 through 18, but I'm going to get into the commentary of verse 16 from a man named Chuck Smith. Because it's amazing how some of these Edomites can actually see what the mark of the beast is, but a lot of you Jakes are still under a spell of hypnosis. You're still blinded. You still can't comprehend, although it's right in your face. And if you do comprehend it, and if you do believe it, then why don't you teach on it? So this is Revelation 13 and 16. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the names of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom, let him that have understanding count the number of the beast, for it is a number of man, and his number is 666. And when you go into these words create a mental illustration of what the mark of the beast actually is. All right, it helps you to understand more clearly. And that's the reason why it's important for you to go into the Greek, into the Hebrew. And matter of fact, in the prologue to the Book of Sirach, and just bringing this out because I haven't went into it in a minute. All right, so I just want to blow the dust off of it. This is the prologue to the Book of Sirach, and it mentions Salakia. It mentions, for the same things uttered in Hebrew and translated into another language, another tongue, have not the same force in them. And not only these things, but the law itself and the prophets and the rest of the books have no small difference when they are spoken in their own tongue. So that goes for, Greek, certain Greek words as well. When it's translated into English, it's not as clear as it is when you go and look it up within the Greek. So the word for mark is charagma, which means, I'm going to just jump down to the Strong's definition. It says a scratch or etching, an example stamped as a badge of servitude. So it's a badge of servitude. And it's a thing inserted, or it's something that's pricked into the flesh. But then you have the word karax, a pale or a stake, a palisade, in which they use the syringe as a pale to pierce your hand through to put in the charagma, which once the charagma gets inside of you, there's something known as the grapho. The grapho is the information that is written within the charagma, which is the RFID chip. Now, it's becoming more and more obvious. In the description box, I'm going to put a link, from a documentary Vice just did concerning the RFID chip in Sweden. Well, eventually that thing is going to be implemented all around the world. And to show you that, people are catching on, this is a commentary from a man named Chuck Smith, which he may be an Edomite. I'm not sure his nationality. But he speaks concerning the RFID chip and also smart cards. But the RFID chip is the mark of the beast. All right, in the brain chip. It says now in France, they have developed and have already trial marketed a smart card. A smart card looks much like your Visa card or MasterCard, with the exceptions that the smart card has implanted in it a little computer chip that keeps track of your account. And if you try to use the card and you are above your limit, it just won't work. Your card knows just what your limits are. It's a constant monitoring of your account, and you can't go over your limits in this smart card with this smart card. And this is coming out of the Blue Letter Bible, from Chuck Smith. All right, the commentaries on Revelation, the 13th chapter, verse 16. It says, now the Bank of America and Citibank of New York are extremely interested in looking into this smart card. They are thinking about the same thing for our use in Visa and MasterCard. In fact, there's an article in today's paper on that. It was in the Santa Ana registry on the smart card. According to the article, the banks are extremely interested in encouraging people away from writing checks. They are getting buried in paper and they want to start using smart cards. Now, this is the point. It says now there is, of course, already talk about the implanting of computer chips under the skin on a person's hand for a positive identification. It is the same kind of thing as a smart card. It will be the same kind of computer chip implemented under the skin of your hand. And it will do the same thing. It will keep track of your account so you could never overdraw. It could replace money completely. The computers could keep the whole accounting. The chip would establish your limits, and you would do all your buying and selling with the mark that is in your right hand. So, as you can see, here it is, a devil can get it and understand and comprehend it, but the mass majority of Israelites can't. All right? And why is that? Because it says right here within the Luke, the 16th chapter, verse 8, it says, and the Lord commanded the unjust steward because he had done wisely, for the children of this world and their generation is wiser than the children of light. If you still can't see that the RFID chip is the mark of the beast, it is because Yahweh have blinded you. The only way for you to comprehend this is for him to open up your understanding. Now, I'm not saying that he's dealing with Edomites. All right. But a lot of Edomites do understand that the mark of the beast is the RFID chip. Isaiah 6:9, and he said, go and tell this people, hear ye indeed, but understand not, and see you indeed, but perceive not. Make the heart of this people fat, and make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert, and be healed. So the Most High Heavenly Father have blinded a lot of you from being able to comprehend it. And although it's right in front of your face and it all makes sense, you still can't see it. Now, here it is. All right. They went as far as, to have countries join the Bretton Woods Agreement. They went as far as to peg the dollar, to the purchasing of oil, the petrodollar, to where you couldn't purchase oil or gas around the world unless you were using the American dollar. Now, they did this to have what? To have total control. Why is it so far-fetched, that they won't chip people in order to maintain a permanent control of the world? Because at this moment, nations could go around, the system that is set in place that sanctions that put sanctions on them to allow them not to trade and not to allow anyone to trade with them. All right, they can go around that. They have something which is called the Swift account, and this is how you transfer money around the world without, actually physically having to ship money all across the world. Well, America has control of that. So they can shut down your Swift account to where you can't send money to another country to be able to purchase oil or goods. They can put sanctions on you. But nations can find ways around that. But if there's an RFID chip system that is set in place, that will give them total control over the people. Which means what? That means that if they don't want you to buy or sell, you won't be able to buy or sell. Microchipping the world's population will give the elites, total power over who can buy or sell. They will have, knowledge of your transactions, the places you visit. They'll monitor you and they'll shut off your chip if they deem you enemies of the state. So that will give them total control. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, what is the petrodollar? Or what is the Brentwood Agreement? This is from a website called The Balance. Now, they deal with trade policies. They deal with the U.S. dollar. They deal with finances and economies, and just putting you up on information in regards to, things that are going on and things that have happened in history. So reading this particular article is called Petro and the System That Created It. It says, it says Petrodollars and the System That Created It. It says the petrodollar is a U.S. dollar paid to oil exporting countries to exchange for oil. The dollar is the permanent global currency. So here it is. The dollar is the permanent global currency. Now, who is behind the banking system that prints the dollars? It's the rich elite banking families. So if it's the permanent global currency, then what kind of power does that give the rich elite banking families over the world? As a result, all international transactions, including oil, are priced in dollars. Oil exporting nations must receive dollars for their exports, not their own currency. So they can't receive their own currency. So if you want to purchase oil from Saudi Arabia, you're not going to, grab the money from Saudi Arabia to pay them. You're going to pay them within US dollars. If you wanted to purchase oil from Venezuela, you're not going to use their currency. You're going to use the US dollar. So if you have the US dollars, whatever bank you put them in, all right, wherever you store them, the US has jurisdiction over that money. So if you go against their system, or if they don't like you for whatever reason, they can shut you out from being able to use that. So that gives them total control. In addition, most oil exporting nations own their oil industries. That makes their national income dependent on the dollar's value. If it falls, so does their government revenue. As a result, most of these oil exporters are also pegged their currencies to the dollar. That way, if the dollar value falls, so does the price of their domestic goods and services. That help these countries avoid wide swing inflation or deflation. So imagine, pegging, these currencies, or not pegging these currencies, to your dollar or your money. And the dollar drops, it's going to cause an inflation within your economy, Reading on, it says petrodollar system. All right. The petrodollar system is tied to the history of the gold standard. After World War II, the United States held most of the world's supply of gold. It agreed to redeem any US dollar for its value in gold if the other countries peg their currencies to the dollar. So what does that mean? That means that because America held the world's gold, that it promised to make a dollar equal to a certain amount of gold. if the nations pegged their currencies to the gold. So these nations were giving America their gold in exchange for the dollar, which was a complete fucking ripoff. And then what happened was these nations started to see that this place was full of shit, and they wanted to give their dollars back to redeem their gold. And that's when they separated the dollar from the gold standard, and which is going to mention that in this article as well. It says other countries signed onto this deal in 1944, Bretton Woods Conference. It established the US dollar as the world reserve currency. So if the dollar is established as the world reserve currency, that will mean that the elites have power, you know? But reading on February 14, 1945, President Franklin D. Roosevelt initiated the alliance with Saudi Arabia. He met with Saudi King Abd al-Aziz. The United States built an airfield at Durham. In return, the military and business training. The alliance was so critical that it survived subsequent years of difference of opinion over the Arab-Israeli conflict. In 1971, U.S. stagflation prompted runs on the dollar. Many countries asked to redeem their U.S. dollars for gold. To protect the remaining U.S. gold reserves, President Richard Nixon removed the dollar from the gold standard. So here it is. He removed the dollar from the gold standard, but guess what was still in place? The dollar was still paid to these other nations' currencies. All right. As a result, the value of the dollar plummeted. That helped the U.S. economy, and the export value also decreased, making them more competitive. A falling dollar hurt oil exporting countries because contracts were priced in U.S. dollars. Their oil revenue dropped along with the dollar. The cost of imports dominated, and other currencies increased. In 1973, Nixon asked Congress for military aid in Israel in the Yom Kippur War. The newly formed organization of the petroleum exporting countries halted oil exports to the United States and other Israeli allies. The OPEC oil embargo quadrupled, and the price of oil in 6 months. Prices remained high even after the embargo ended. Petrodollar recycling. In 1979, the United States and Saudi Arabia negotiated the United States-Saudi Arabian Joint Commission on Economic Cooperation. They agreed to use the U.S. dollars for oil contracts. The U.S. dollars would be recycled back to America through contracts with U.S. companies. These companies improved Saudi infrastructure through technology transfer. That increase imports provides higher wages for government employees and boosts local economy. You know, but that's pretty much the point there. That through establishing, the dollar, or pegging the dollar to the oil, that gave them control around the world through just like setting up the Bretton Woods Agreement. All right, so they've been setting these nations up all along. So now these nations' economy are pegged to the U.S. dollar, which is like an anchor economy. So whatever this economy does, the economies around the world is attached to these. So if this one fall, theirs will fall. All right, so these elites have a lot of control, but they want even more control. So what are they doing, or what have they done? All right, they have heaped unto themselves, the people, the nations, as it states within the book of Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter, in the 5th verse. It says, "Yet also because he transgresseth by wine, that wine being his philosophies. He is a proud man, he neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desires as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gather unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And this is what they want to do through implementing the RFID chip worldwide. All right, he wants total control of all the people around the globe. All right, the scripture says that he cannot be satisfied. He's not satisfied with the position that he has right now over the world. All right, it's not enough, because nations can go outside of the trading agreements. All right, even though they may have sanctions put on them, which will hurt their economy, they can go outside of that. They can trade with other nations. But if there's an RFID chip system that is implemented, all right, they will have to do what the elites bid them to do. And if they don't, all right, the different people around the globe being upon this one system, which is controlled by the rich elite banking families, will not be able to buy. They won't be able to sell. Now, what does it mean to heap unto yourselves all nations? The word there is kwabatazah, and it says to gather, to gather, assemble, to gather, collect, assemble. So they're going to assemble the nations around the world through the RFID chip system. All right, creating a one world government, creating a new world order through a one world government. And that's the reason why this place which they are doing it through is called Babylon. All right, when you go into the book of Genesis, the 11th chapter, verse 1, it says, "And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech." And now when you're doing trading with America, you have to know what? You have to know English. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another. Now this is going all the way into the back book of Genesis, dealing with ancient Babylon, where they built the Tower of Babel. It says, "Go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city, and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And Yahweh came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And Yahweh said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they began to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down and confound their language, that they may not understand one another speech. So Yahweh scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore, the name of it called Babel, because Yahweh did therefore confound the language of all the people, and from thence did Yahweh scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth. So just like it was during this ancient time, where they were confederate, where they were one, where there was a one world order, this is what the elites are trying to establish, all right, in the earth right now through their RFID chip system, which they're trying to get everyone within all of these different nations on. All right, so that they can have total control over the people. But when they implement this system and they set up the RFID chip, all right, this is the judgment that's going to come upon, all right, Babylon. This is Revelations 14:6. "And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear Yahweh and give glory to him, For the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the foundation of the fountains of water. And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations to drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Yahweh, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascended up forever and ever. And they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and the image, and his image, and whosoever receiveth his mark and of his name. So this is the judgment that is coming upon Babylon, the ICBM missiles. All right. And everyone that received the mark of the beast. All right. Esau is going to set up this RFID chip system. All right. They're going to make it mandatory to receive the mark of the beast. And the penalty for not receiving the mark of the beast is going to be imprisonment. It's going to be tortures. It's going to be being put to death. All right. But those that are faithful are going to be faithful even unto death. They're not going to receive this carnal mark. All right. The elect are not going to receive the mark of the beast, which is the RFID chip. But many in the world will. Even some that know it's the mark of the beast, all right, and don't speak up about it, are going to receive it because they care for this world and the goods of this world. And they're going to want to be able to buy and sell. They're going to want to be able to eat, to pay their rent. All right, but all of them are going to receive this punishment that is read within Revelation, the 14th chapter. So the elites, want a one world order through the RFID chip system and the brain chip. All right, but as soon as they implement that thing, all right, the Lord is going to rain down his weapons of war upon them. It's the book of Job, the 20th chapter, and verse 22. It says, in the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits, and every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. When he is about to fill his belly, Yahweh shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him, and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. He shall flee from the iron weapon, and the bow of steel shall strike him through. So that bow of steel, being the ICBM missile, or the ICBM missiles, is going to land upon this place to destroy the whole land thereof, to destroy the whole land of Babylon. So, with that, I truly hope that this lesson was edifying. Until the next time, it's Shalom.